This is 21 Questions. It's a trivia podcast that I run. My name's Mike. Hello. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. Question 1. Which country's highest mountain is Mount Fuji? That would be Japan, Mount Fuji. Question 2. How many consonants does the English alphabet have? Now, there are 5 vowels out of 26 letters, therefore 21 consonants. Question 3. George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley had hits in the 1980s as which duo? That would be Wham, often spelt with an exclamation mark at the end. Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. And they had a song called Wham Rap that I think predates the Wake Me Up one. Like we're talking 81 or 82, I think. Anywho, question 4. I don't want people to think I'm an expert on Wham because 1, I'm not, and 2, ooh. Question 4 is always a true or false in this podcast. True or false? The amusement park ride, the Ferris wheel, is named after its inventor. His name was George Washington Gale Ferris. Is that true? Is that false? That's actually true. Way back in 1893, George Washington Gale Ferris designed and built the original big wheel. He called it the Colossal Wheel. And he built it for the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition, which was held in Chicago, and he did it to serve as the American answer to Paris's Eiffel Tower. True story. Question 5. On what continent is the colourful bird the toucan mostly found? I wonder if I should have given you multiple choice. Should I have said Asia or South America, for example? Would that have helped you? Either way, the answer is South America. If you see a toucan any other time, he's on holidays. Question 6. In which American political TV drama series did Stockard Channing play the First Lady opposite Martin Sheen, who played President Jed Bartlett? That would be The West Wing. I've never really watched it. I've heard good things about it. The issue is they're making more good TV now, and they have been for 20 years, than a person can possibly watch. Like if you have a life, you don't have time. I don't know how you people have time to listen to this podcast. Just on that, I recently had a look at where my listeners are in the world, and I now have listeners in Somalia. That's crazy to me because all I know about Somalia is the movie Black Hawk Down and pirates. Now, if you're a pirate and listening to this show, stop doing that, please. Not the listening thing, keep listening. But maybe give the piracy a bit of a miss. Put that on the down low, maybe go get a real job. Just saying. I mean, I realise it might be a family business. Your dad might be a pirate. Maybe your granddad was. Maybe you need to be the one to take your family down the straight and narrow and stop being a pirate. Arr. I'm not even sure why I said any of that. Question 7. What part of your body is the trapezoid bone in? That would be your wrist. Your trapezoid bone is located at the wrist or the carpus. It's one of the 8 small bones down here for those of you watching on video. And there's a scary thing, by the way. Let me tell you, there's nothing quite so confronting as watching your own face on a big screen as you edit a podcast. I am not ready for a large size view of this head. Not enjoying that at all. Anywho, I've started now. I've got to keep going. So my choices are to learn to accept the way I look or do my best to be better looking, and it's a struggle, let me tell you. Anyway, trapezoid, it's in your wrist. I think we know that. Can we move on? I'd really like that. Thank you. After question 7, we do the first clues for the Who Am I. Today it's something different to anything we've ever done on this pod before. It's a technology product. Who am I? I was invented out of an argument about classical music. The engineers who built me originally wanted me smaller than I ended up being, but one of the men in charge insisted that I needed to be big enough to hold an entire symphony without a break, and he got his way. I'm the product of an unlikely marriage between a Dutch electronics giant and a Japanese one. They'd been secretly racing each other for years, then in 1979 decided to stop competing and build me together instead. Technology product, huge, changed the world. Any thought on what that might be yet? More clues after question 14 if you don't. Question 8. According to the United Nations, are there more or fewer than 50 countries in Africa? There are more. According to the United Nations, there are different ways of counting the countries in Africa. It shouldn't be that difficult, should it? It should just be 1, 2, 3. But no. Some states aren't recognised officially as a sovereign nation. Some of them are islands. Look it up if you really want to know. Trust me, though. The answer to the question I asked you, according to the United Nations, is more. The United Nations says there are 54 countries in Africa. Good. Let's move on. Question 9. Was the actor Michael J. Fox born in the UK, the USA, or Canada? Michael J. Fox is Canadian. Fun fact, the J in Michael J. Fox's name stands for Andrew. That's right, J for Andrew. He was born Michael Andrew Fox, and he adopted the J as a professional tribute to another famous actor, or I say famous, I've never heard of him, Michael J. Pollard. And he made the switch to avoid confusion with another actor named Michael Fox, who was already registered with the Screen Actors Guild. That's the thing. Quite often they've got to change their name in some small way because there's already an actor with that registered name. Question 10. Which play by William Shakespeare was made into a movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes in 1996? That was one of Leonardo's first big roles. That was Romeo and Juliet, directed by Baz Luhrmann. Question 11. True or false? The age pension and daylight savings are both English inventions. Is that true? Is that false? That's actually false. Germany did both of those things. They introduced daylight savings in 1916 as a wartime power-saving measure, and the age pension in 1889. Back then you had to be 70 years old to get it. Question 12, music question. Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word was a worldwide hit for which British piano-playing entertainer? Now look, I know I might have made that a little bit too easy by saying British piano-playing entertainer, but Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word goes back to 1976. It's a long time ago, and I have some young listeners. Anyway, it was Elton John off the Blue Moves album. Also on that album is a song called Tonight, which is pretty good too. That song is on Elton's album recorded with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra in 1987. If you haven't heard that album, that is your homework between now and the next episode. Elton John live with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, 1987. It's a double album and it is beautiful. Let's press on. Question 13. This is for all the people that sit in their cars listening to this podcast going, why are there never any questions about Neighbours? Well, here's one. What were the first names of Kylie Minogue and Jason Donovan's characters on Neighbours? That would be Scott and Charlene. Jason Donovan played Scott, and Kylie was Charlene. Good. Question 14. Which S is the granddaddy of artificial sweeteners first sold in the late 1800s? That's saccharin. Did you know artificial sweeteners have been around for that long? Since the late 1800s. The guy that discovered it by accident. Within a couple of years he was selling it and it took off almost immediately. So people have been worrying about their fate since then, maybe even before. Who knows? More clues now for the Who Am I. If you remember, it's the technology product that changed the world. What am I? My first ever test pressing wasn't pop music. It was a recording of a Richard Strauss symphony performed by the Berlin Philharmonic. The conductor was a famous Austrian maestro who'd been personally recruited to be my celebrity ambassador before it even hit the shelves. The public got their first real look at me on a British television program called Tomorrow's World, where I was used to play a Bee Gees song. Have you worked it out yet? More clues after question 20 if you need them. Question 15. Which TV series starred Sarah Michelle Gellar and spawned a spin-off series called Angel? That would be Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Question 16. Does the word barista, meaning bartender, come from the Italian or French language? Barista comes from the Italian. Question 17. According to Greek mythology, what's the name of the winged horse that sprang from the body of Medusa? That must have been uncomfortable. That would be Pegasus. Question 18. Which musical opens with the song Good Morning Baltimore? That would be Hairspray. Hairspray is actually pretty interesting. It was originally a 1988 movie. It starred Sonny Bono, and it was not a musical. There was music in it because the show's about dancing, but no one burst into song the way they do in musicals. Then, in 2002, they adapted that movie into a Broadway show, and in 2007, it was made into the movie with John Travolta playing Edna, who's the mother of the main character, and that role is traditionally played by a male performer in drag. Reasons why remain unclear. Question 19 is always a still alive or not so much in this podcast. And while we're talking musicals, I thought we'd do this one. Still alive or not so much, Jeff Conaway. Who's Jeff Conaway? He played Kaniki in the 1970s movie version of Grease. Is Jeff Conaway still alive or not so much? Jeff Conaway, not so much. He died a little while ago, actually, back in 2011. He's an interesting character, though. He was absolutely infatuated with Olivia Newton-John while they were filming Grease. He said he just fell in love with her more and more every day. He actually went on to marry her sister, Rona. That's a little weird. That would have been awkward at family gatherings, I suspect. Anyway, R.I.P. Jeff Conaway. Question 20, music question for you. Which band released the original versions of The Great Pretender and Only You and You Alone? Not the easiest music question that I've ever asked because it goes back a little way. Quite often the bands from this era were the Someones, and they were the Platters. The Platters. And once again, I have resisted the urge to sing. Goodo. Final clues now for the Who Am I / What Am I? I properly came into the world in a German factory in August 1982. The very first one of me ever made was ABBA's final album at the time, but the first one you could actually buy in the shops was Billy Joel's 52nd Street, released in Japan alongside The Machine, Built to Play Me. By the late 1980s, I'd knocked vinyl off its perch, and a few years after that, I saw off the cassette tape too. For the next 2 decades, I sat in every car and every stereo until something called streaming came along and made me obsolete. I am the compact disc. There we go. Time now for the player questions. That's where I invite you, the listener, to send me a trivia question that has caught your eye, and I will ask it in this section of the show. Last episode, Tracy Ann asked the question, what is the name of the famous geyser in Yellowstone National Park that erupts every 60 to 90 minutes? That would be Old Faithful. Old Faithful. Excellent. Thank you very much, Tracy Ann. That's a great question. Now, this episode, I've heard from Adam and Emma. They are lovely people. They play at my Thursday night show down at Club Raby Bay. They're rockers from way back, the two of them, and they've sent me a music-based question, which I love. The question is, in which decade were the iconic electric guitars, the Gibson Les Paul and the Fender Strat, or the Fender Stratocaster, first sold? Wow. That goes back a little way. Cool question about cool guitars. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Emma. We will do the answer to that next episode. If you'd like to be like Tracy Ann and Adam and Emma and send me a trivia question, I would love you to do that. There's 2 ways to get it to me. Via my Facebook page, 21 Questions by Trivia Tribe. Send me a message from there, or email me direct, mike@triviatribe.com.au. I will acknowledge your message to let you know that I've got it, because it will take a little while for your question to circle up to the top of the list, because I've got quite a few in the bank, because lots of people send them to me, which I love. This podcast comes out every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday. Meet me back here in a couple of days. We'll have another crack at it. My name's Mike Van Acker. I love you. Catch you next time.